It's Aloha Friday.
Well, aloha! It's Friday. And this is Jamie with Jamie Barber Homes saying aloha. Well, as usual, on our Fridays, we're going to discuss a little real estate. Well, actually, this week, we're going to discuss the Federal Reserve. I'm sorry, I drank some sparkling water and making me burp a little, so I apologize. But so we're going to talk about the Federal Reserve because with what they're doing, it's going to affect the inflation rates. I mean, it's going to affect, well, it is going, hopefully, affect inflation, but it's also going to affect the interest rates somewhat, which is important here in the housing market. Now, as you know, we're still in that crazy market where inventories are very low for houses that are people that are trying to sell, and interest rates are still pretty low. So it's a great time to sell because there's not any inventory, and then more than likely you'll be able to get over asking. And if you're interested in buying or need to buy, this is still a pretty good time. Interest rates are still somewhat low and haven't started climbing because they will. All right. So let's discuss what's happened. Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, emphasized this week that the central bank he leads could succeed in its quest to tamp rapid inflation without causing unemployment to rise or setting off a recession. Please don't set off a recession. But he also acknowledged that such a benign outcome was not certain. The historical record provides some grounds for optimism, Mr. Powell said. That some is worth noting. While there may be hope, there's also reason to worry, given the Fed's track record when it's in the inflation fighting mode. The Fed has at times managed to raise interest rates to cool down demand and weaken inflation without meaningfully harming the economy. Mr. Powell highlighted examples in 1965, 1984, and 1994. But those instances came amid much lower inflation and without the ongoing shocks of a global pandemic and a war in Ukraine. Now, the part Fed officials avoid saying out loud is that the central bank's tools work by slowing down the economy, and weakening growth always comes with a risk of overdoing it. And while the Fed ushered in its first rate increases this month, some economists and at least one Fed official think it was too slow to start taking its foot off the gas. Some warn that the delay increases the chance it might have to overcorrect. Yeah, they like to do that. It's a big stick. So the Fed has touched off recessions with the past rate increases. It happened in the early 80s when Paul Volcker raised rates in a campaign to bring down very rapid inflation and send unemployment rocketing painfully higher in the process. There's no guarantee that there will be a recession, but you have high inflation, and if you're serious about bringing it down quickly, you have to hike it a lot. Now, that was said by Roberto Perro, the head of global policy at Piper Sandler, which is an investment bank, and he was a former Fed economist. The economy doesn't like that. I think the risk is substantial. Now, it is no surprise that it can be difficult to cool down inflation while sustaining an economic expansion. Higher borrowing costs trickle through the economy by slowing the housing market, discouraging big purchases, and prompting companies to cut expansion plans and hire fewer workers. That broad pullback weakens the labor market and slows wage growth, helping inflation to moderate. But the chain reaction plays out gradually, and its results can be seen only with a delay. So it's easy to lay on the brakes too hard. Yep. And you swing to the left, and then you got to bring it back a little bit, and hopefully you'll find someplace in the center. Now, No one expects that bringing about a soft landing will be straightforward in the current context. Very little is straightforward in the current context, as is what Mr. Powell acknowledged during his remarks this week. My colleagues and I will do our best to succeed in this challenging task. Now remember, six of the eight Fed rate increase cycles since the early 80s have ended in recession. Though some of these were caused by external shocks like the pandemic and some by asset bubble implosions, including the 2007 housing crisis and the collapse in internet stocks in the early 2000s. So the Feds are hoping that today's strong economy will help them avoid a rough landing. So let's hope that they've got it under control, that they understand, But, after a year of rapid inflation, it's no guarantee that longer term inflation expectations will stay in check. Keeping them under control is a big part of why the Fed is get moving now, even as the war in Ukraine stokes uncertainty. The central bank raised rates 1/4 point this month and projected a series of interest rate increases to come. All right, the interest rates are going to go up. Nothing we can do about it. While officials would usually look past a temporary pop in oil prices, like the one the conflict has spurred, concerns about expectations mean they do not love that luxury. They don't have this luxury this time. The risk is raising that an extended period of high inflation could push longer-term expectations uncomfortably higher. Mr. Powell signaled that the Fed may raise interest rates by 0.5% in May and immediately begin to shrink its balance sheet of bond holdings. Now, that would help policies that would help from the U.S. economy much more rapidly than in the last economic expansion. But some officials have urged moving quickly, arguing that monetary policy is still at an emergency setting and out of line with a very strong economy. So, I know that was a lot of technical, and I'm sorry, but you do need to know that the central bank does plan on in May making another increase, and will do it a few more times this year, and that interest rates will rise. There is a possibility of us going into a recession. Let's hope not. But we do need to get this inflation under control. So again, if you are on the fence about wanting to sell your house, this is a good time. And if you're on the fence about buying a house, you need to get into the market before the interest rates start climbing. Now, they're not going to climb as high as they have been in the past, but they are going to go up. So if you want, it's really emphasizing this should probably be a good time, if you're even considering it, of getting into the market to purchase a home. Well, if you want to talk about this more, or if you want to talk to me about buying or selling a home, you can reach me at jamie@jamiebarberhomes.com. And remember, it's Friday, and don't let my dour conversation put a quash on your weekend. Enjoy it, because it's Aloha Friday and no work till Monday. Well, unless you're a realtor or you're in retail sales, but enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you next Friday. And I'll try to make sure that next Friday is a little more uplifting than to this Friday. All right, that's Jamie Barber with Jamie Barber Home saying aloha, and see you next weekend.